They tell us inflation is the enemy. Prices rising, money losing value, your savings quietly evaporating while you sleep. That's the story we've heard for decades. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The system doesn't fear inflation nearly as much as it fears deflation. In fact, deflation is the thing that keeps central bankers awake at night. And once you understand why, a lot of modern economics starts to feel less accidental. Right now, this matters more than ever. Debt levels are historic, growth is slowing, consumers are stretched, and the tools used to fight inflation are quietly flirting with something far more dangerous. So let's walk through this calmly. No lectures, no jargon, just the mechanics. Imagine a simple economy. You earn money, you spend money, you save some, you borrow some. Inflation means prices slowly rise. Your money buys a little less each year. Annoying? Yes, but manageable. Because inflation gently pushes you to act. Spend now, not later. Invest, don't hoard. Borrow if you need to, because future money will be cheaper to repay. The system likes movement. Deflation does the opposite. Prices fall. Tomorrow is cheaper than today, so you wait. Why buy a phone today if it'll cost less next month? Why invest now if cash gains value just by sitting still? Consumption slows, investment freezes, money stops circulating. And when money stops moving, the system starts choking. Here's where the story turns darker. Modern economies are not built on cash, they're built on debt. Government debt, corporate debt, household debt. Debt assumes tomorrow will be bigger than today. If prices fall, revenue falls, but the debt stays the same. A loan taken in a growing economy becomes heavier in a shrinking one. Every dollar owed feels larger. Every payment hurts more. Defaults rise, banks tighten, credit dries up. And suddenly, what looked like prices going down turns into layoffs, bankruptcies, and panic. This isn't theory, we've seen it. The Great Depression wasn't just a stock market crash, it was a deflationary spiral. Prices collapsed, wages fell, debts exploded in real terms. People who were safe suddenly weren't. That memory never left the system. So central banks made a choice. They decided a little inflation is not a bug, it's a feature. Around 2%, not zero, not negative, just enough to keep money uncomfortable to hold forever. Quietly taxing cash, quietly rewarding risk, quietly making debt survivable. Here's the part no one advertises. Inflation makes debt easier to manage over time. Deflation makes debt lethal. And since the system runs on debt, its preference is clear. Now comes the irony. Inflation feels bad immediately. You notice it at the grocery store, at the fuel pump, in rent. Deflation feels good at first. Cheaper prices, discounts everywhere. But inflation hurts in public. Deflation kills in private. By the time deflation shows up in headlines, the damage is already deep. This is why when markets wobble, central banks don't hesitate. Rates to zero, money printing, emergency lending, not because they love inflation, because they fear deflation more. They're not trying to make you rich, they're trying to keep the machine from stalling. And that leads to an uncomfortable contrast. Public narrative, inflation is the villain. Behind the scenes, inflation is tolerated, even engineered. The real nightmare is a world where prices fall, debts rise, and no one wants to move. A frozen economy. Now zoom out. As populations age, productivity slows and debt piles higher, deflationary pressure grows stronger. Technology pushes prices down. Global competition pushes margins down. Demographics push demand down. And the system responds the only way it knows. More stimulus, more intervention, more attempts to force movement. At some point, the question stops being, how do we fight inflation, and becomes, how long can this balance be maintained? Because fighting deflation means flirting with inflation, and suppressing inflation too hard risks triggering deflation. It's a narrow bridge, and the wind is picking up. So here's the thought to sit with. If inflation is what we complain about, and deflation is what the system truly fears, what does that tell you about how fragile modern growth really is? And what happens when the tools stop working?